Truth Frequency Radio Network. KTFRN. Worldwide.
Welcome, Shadowland Voyagers. In the spirit of sovereignty and self-empowerment, we invite you to journey with us into the Shadowland. Let's rediscover, reclaim, and integrate the fragmented aspects of our individual and collectively held consciousness. Realize true freedom and restore authentic expression. Could it be the only way out is through the Shadowland?
Good night, good day, and good afternoon, good morning and good evening, and hello everyone. This is Sienna, and this is Shadowland Voyagers, episode 29. I am here with Christina Grant. Hello, Christina.
Hello, everybody.
And the amazing, the unpredictable, the cosmic, Elizabeth Hansken.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone.
All right. I can't believe this is episode 29, y'all, and this is the last episode that the three of us will be doing together for a while, although who knows what the future brings. We invite you to celebrate with us the growth, expanded knowledge, and new directions that are unfolding here. And so we would just like everybody to take a deep breath, stretch out, take some space, put aside all your other worries and concerns, and join with us. We are going to be discussing all the brilliant insights and awarenesses we've gained, the experiences that we've had doing this for the last half a year, and we're going to talk about the future. What is the direction of Shadowland Voyagers in the future? We're going to take a pretty in-depth look at our understandings and knowledges to this point about what this journey has brought through for all of us. So here we are. It's evolution time for Shadowland Voyagers. And I threw out the concept of this being our final exam. That did not fly really well. So we're just going to say... So we are all here, and we're going to break down what all these weeks and all these guests have brought to us, and also it's been an amazing journey for each one of us, and we're going to speak personally and intimately about that too. So we're going to start with what is a shadow self, and the floor is open. I have a few things to say about that, but I'm open to either one of you jumping in here at any point as well.
Well, first I just want to say that I can't believe we've been doing this for 6 months. I mean, it just seemed so to me like you standing on the edge of a cliff in this huge canyon below, like, I'm going to jump in there, I'm going to do this. And it's so interesting, I think, part of what I've come to understand is that something that is scary and intimidating and definitely out of your comfort zone soon becomes quite comfortable. So I just would like to say that I really appreciate having had this experience and just the understanding that, you know, if life brings something to you, go for it, because you're going to grow from it. And like I said, it's going to become really pretty comfortable relatively quickly. So just want to say that.
It wasn't comfortable that first show, though. I remember that. We were all sort of shaking in our boots.
I I was physically shaking the whole 2 hours, yeah. But, it was like, I'm doing this. I'm not going to let my scared little ego hold me back. It was like this deeper part was like, go for it. You need to do this. You need to have this experience. So anyways.
Well, it was all my fault. I talked Christina into this. She was she approached me when I was doing another radio show to step out on my own, and I wasn't ready for that. I said, I'm happy to do that if you do it with me. And she said, no, you don't get what I'm proposing here. I'm a producer. I'm a behind-the-scenes kind of girl. And I went, okay, well, that ain't happening.
And then I was like, well, I don't know. I'm not really comfortable doing it alone. Hey, how about my friend Elizabeth? You want to do this radio show with me?
And at that time, I was in a place where I was like, whatever's coming my way, I'm hopping on board. So, and I haven't been much for wanting to speak publicly or anything like that, for fear that anything that I said, I couldn't trust anything that was coming out of my mouth at the time in particular. So that she asked me to do a radio show and be in the public eye, I was petrified, but I didn't want to say no either, because I understood that life brings things to us for our own evolution, whether it's hard or we're afraid or any of those things. And quite frankly, I wanted to regain my voice. What a perfect stage to do it on. So, yeah, it's been an amazing journey that way. So,
well, I am really appreciative that both of you were willing to do that, and that you contacted me and were supportive. This information that everything in the outer world is a reflection of our own unowned shadow context. It's time to get real with building our spiritual warriorship and developing these skills alongside of breaking through the veil to all the secret information of the global elite and the power struggles and the level of enslavement we're all under, and the huge amount of information that there's the outer and that there's the inner, and they work together, and one isn't more important than the other. But this is the hardest sell in my experience, because none of us want to own our shadow self. So there you showed up and said, no, this has been a key of my life. This has changed my life. This has saved my life. We need to do this. And that mutual support to stand for something that's really unpopular, because there are huge cultural taboos against owning the dark side, facing the dark side, and then admitting a part of it you've courted to, and a part of it you're fulfilling. These are absolutely taboo and forbidden topics. So I am so grateful that you stepped out with very little radio experience to brilliant women who also are really walking their talk, in my opinion, doing this work. And you're not attached to a radio show or fame or fortune or anything, just to really be the embodiment of the things that we've talked about here. And I've noticed that over the months, a field has developed. A lot of our shows have had our guests speaking very personally, very intimately. And I feel that it's because we are stepping out as three women. I'm not saying men can't do this either, but that women do have a feeling field, a field that invites connection and intimacy. And we've had people say, oh my God, I don't believe I said that on air. And some things we've had to delete because but it's happened over and over again. And to me, this means we've created a truth frequency and a beautiful space of empowerment. And it hasn't been without a lot of challenges that we've gone through. Interpersonally, we've gotten into some difficult areas in our own selves. We've had to overcome a lot to keep shining, however we look at that, and showing up as sometimes feeble and incompetent as we feel in doing that, and reclaiming that voice. And we so want to encourage everybody to find their own way to do that in the world in bigger and smaller ways. So I am just so grateful that the two of you gave me so much support. You continue to give me, and friendship and truth. hasn't always been a walk in the park, but it has been an incredible growth for me to be that supported. So I thank you both incredibly for that.
Mm-hmm. Love you.
Love you too, Sienna.
So we dive into the material and we talk about what's coming up next last, because we're winging it here. This is our last show together. This is going to be intimate and improvisational. So I hope you can all flow with that with us and just enjoy that conversational spirit that we're doing this show in. Does it feel right to dive into the material or to talk about where we're, and then talk where we're each individually headed a little bit down the line? Okay?
That sounds great, Sienna.
All right. So are we complete with that piece, that conversation, or is there anything I left out, anything you want to share before we move into the list of questions?
Yeah, I think we can incorporate any more that we want to talk about within the questions themselves.
Yeah, and I'm really encouraging all of us and this one show, because I didn't encourage it in other shows, to really be as transparent as you want about your own personal journey. I think that's appropriate here. So the first question is, what is a shadow self? And
Christina, do you want to take this first, or do you want me to go ahead? Either way.
Mine's just really brief. I was just, for me, it's just the part of the ego personality that's not fully conscious or aware. I see it as like the aspect that is separated from your spirit, and so it's in need of integration. And I just had a quote here that Hume said, which is, "Everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is."
Yeah.
Yeah. Here, I'm gonna kind of talk about it a little bit on a personal level, because I began doing this kind of work a long time ago, and there were some aspects when you get further and further into the ego, personality, the beliefs, all of that stuff. When you start really getting to the root of things, you get to this point where there's a time where you take off the mask completely, and I didn't ever feel safe to do that, and so I continued to hold on to certain beliefs that the way that I was being in the world actually worked. And so for quite a few years, I went on as if nothing needed to be looked at in those areas. And I started to run into, relationship problems, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. And then I started making rules about how to deal in those relationships that were painful, not looking at my own relationship with the occasion, with the situation that may have been in play, the conflict, the emotions, things like that would come up with other people. I didn't look inward, and there were beliefs that were sitting there that had become huge monsters, and I didn't even realize when that happened or how that happened, because I'd gone into some isolation. And when I came out of isolation, I found myself completely incapable of holding conversations or being around people without having an excruciating limitation. I'd get into these panic attacks, and my body would tremble and my voice would tremble, and everything that would come out of my mouth, it just didn't match what I actually felt. And I found that I couldn't trust myself. I couldn't trust what was coming out of my mouth. All of a sudden, I realized that there was this huge darkness in the way of expression, which I hadn't quite felt to that degree before. And that's when I realized that there was I
can't hear you at this point. All right, there's a problem with the call.
I can hear you. Looks like Elizabeth dropped out.
Really?
In terms of,
are you back,
you dropped
Elizabeth?
out for a moment.
Oh, I did?
Yeah.
Can you tell me where it was that you didn't hear me anymore?
Yeah, it was this big monster that wasn't you that was manifesting, and it was based on, and then the call dropped off.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was based in a fear of connection with others and a connection with myself, to actually feel me, to feel my own essence. Like I had lost touch with, I was not in my body, and I'd lost touch with connection with others and with myself. And it was at that point that I realized that I had some work to do. And it was around that time that Christina had asked me to join the radio show crew. So it's been... Okay, we're back on the show without Sienna. Hopefully she joins us. Let me see if I can pull her back in.
While you're doing that, I just, when you were talking there about removing the mask, I just wanted to mention, I don't know if we ever have, our graphic, our Shadowland Voyagers graphic, that image. Well, for one, that's my daughter, Seneca. And my other daughter, Skylar, she created that mask. It's called Demon Eater. And she set up this photo shoot and took these really artistic pictures, which I thought was a really, really neat creative artistic project. But it symbolizes what you were talking about, but removing that mask, and also a reference to the inner child, the innocence that's within us below the mask and the shadow self and all of that.
Hello, I'm back.
Yay, Sienna, yay.
So it was just me that got knocked off?
No, we all were off.
Yeah, because you were hosting the call.
Anyways, let's move on. Let's get back into the dialogue.
Yeah. So, Sienna, you had said that you wanted to say something about the shadow self and what you feel the shadow self is. So,
well, I just had a definition of the shadow self that I could throw out here for further dialogue. So, I mean, I'm seeing it as the energy and the content of what we've not manifested, of our soul essence, repressed truth, often aspects that have become negative due to repression, abuse, suppression, and feelings of unworthiness, just what you were talking about, and too risky. Often the energy of the true self inverted, perverted, subverted. From hidden and forbidden life-negating aspects, emotions and thoughts, they can become entities and subpersonalities. These can be manipulated by other beings to fulfill their own ends. So, yeah.
That's a great definition.
Yeah, perfect. And
I was just going to say, as you were talking to, like, how did I come to know about the shadow self and shadow aspects was similar to you, Elizabeth, and just in terms of kind of hitting my own personal rock bottom and seeing what I had actually manifested in my life, and deciding to finally look at it honestly and take ownership for these things. And that's when I realized, oh my gosh, there's the shadow aspects that are hiding within your own being that you don't even realize are there. I mean, you do to a certain point, but they've taken over. Like you said, they grow to this point where they're just taking over. And so I think it comes from this, there's this, what is the word? You can understand it on a mental level, but until you experience it firsthand yourself and you come face to face with your own shadow aspects, then it becomes like, wow, this is really real. And then you get through it, you move through it, and you realize the power that is hiding within that shadow when you reintegrate it.
Oh, it's incredible. It's incredible what happens when we actually look and are honest that, you know, the assumptions we're making, I'm finding that it's mostly shows up most prevalently. It's easier to see in relationships with others. I just keep finding, I mean, that's where it is activated, it seems. And, you know, there's so many of us with trust issues because we've all felt hurt by things and, you know, like for me, I grew up in a situation where, you know, my parents didn't love themselves and were derogatory about themselves while I was a child, and they, you know, that was projected onto their children, and so it's just been like through the lineage of projections of even just, you know, negative. Every statement that comes out of one's mouth is negative, or derogatory in some way. And so, I mean, I didn't know how to translate that in that pure state when you're 5 years old. You don't know how to translate such negativity. And so I just thought, well, there must be something wrong with me, And so I tried to fix my essence, basically. Mm-hmm. To fit into the world, the construct that we're living in. We're all living this. It's not just, it doesn't take a bad childhood or anything like that. We're all subject to these ways of being, as they're put in out there as the normal way to be, but it's not natural. It's not natural right. to our essence. So.
Right, but as soon as you wake up to that and you take that awareness grows, then when someone makes a comment like that you are offended by or hurt by, it's like when you have that immediate emotional reaction, you have this point, a choice at that point, that you can identify with that and defend in your emotional reaction, or you can see that emotional reaction as an indicator of a shadow aspect that's been triggered. So you can take blame or take responsibility, and that's the turning point. That's what this awareness of shadow aspects and shadow self bring. You take responsibility, you can then respond in a more calm way. You can address the comment without that emotional charge. And of course you can take it further and do some shadow diving. But like you said, I mean, especially once you do that shadow aspect and you realize it's a self-worth issue, then you're likely to see that comment coming from that person's own shadow aspect as well, which helps you not to take it personally. And then you end up having compassion because you see that their comment was based on their own lack of self-worth and lack of self-love. So I think everything comes back down to that. I don't think I know. Every single dysfunction, dis-ease, disharmony comes from a lack of self-love and self-worth ultimately.
Yeah, and that isn't the fault of anyone. This has been many years.
Yeah, we lost Sienna again.
Mm. Yeah, we've lost her again.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, she's just going to have to join back in, I guess. Well, so let's talk about how we know then a shadow aspect is at play. I mean, we kind of touched on this a little bit, but like I was saying, emotional reactions, I think those are totally different than a response, right? A reaction is based on emotions, whereas a response is based on feelings. I think there's a subtle difference there, but a really big difference at the same time, because when you respond just from your feeling center, you're able to be calm, clear, objective. And when you're responding from an emotional reaction, forget it. I mean, it's for me, I'm totally irrational. All I want to do is defend myself, make my point. I'm feeling just completely controlled by what's going on, without having any control, lack of control. Did you say similar?
Yeah, it's that one's tough. It's kind of hard to put to words in some ways. I guess we're going to break, and we will see you on the other side. Welcome back, everyone, to Shadowland Voyagers. This is Elizabeth, and we're talking about how we can know if a shadow aspect is at play. And we were just wanting to recap on that, and wanted to... Are you there, Sienna? Okay.
Yeah. The call is going in and out a lot. We apologize for this. We'll try to keep the conversation rolling as best we can. I was simply saying that per the conversation with Max Deschoux, we have been in a culture for many thousands of years that has demonized the feeling, the ground of being, the very essence of who we are in many ways. And I really recommend anyone who hasn't heard Max Deschoux, that was the last episode, please listen to it. It's such an eye-opener because we have to build self-respect from some kind of platform, and it's helpful to know the dark forces that have been impacting us, so that we can recognize that we're just not all screwed up because we're screwed up, and that we can build a basis of self-respect regardless of how dark, how dank, how far off we strayed, how dysfunctional we become. And this is an important thing. People often ask, if you've been on the dark side for that long, or you recognize these really nasty parts of yourselves, it's so hard to face them and accept them, because then people won't like you, and then you can lose your friends, you can lose your job, you can lose your standing, you can lose your respect. And so we all want to hide this because we have to appear to be positive and integrous even when we're not. And I think that we need to drop all of that and recognize that our willingness to face whatever is the truth is our growing integrity step by step. And this is so vital that we don't condemn ourselves and judge each other, because this is duality. This is both sides of the force are operating every day, millions of times. Everyone has a dark side. Duality is dark and light and dark. This is the world we're in. And it's we are not going to be able to reach the kind of humanity and society that is not full of cruelty and war and oppression if each one of us can't cut it ourselves that slack. So the next question: how can we identify our weakness?
I want to say something there. I think it's also really important to understand that even if you're hiding your shadow aspect and you think that you're keeping it all under wraps and you're doing a great job of suppressing it, well, you're not. And you're going to adversely affect every single one of your relationships, whether it's, personal or work, home, family. It's going to undermine all of your relationships. So you might as well own them. You might as well bring them to the surface and look at them and feel them and integrate them, because they're gonna take you down eventually anyways.
It's so true. It's so true. Oh my gosh. I wanted to say something there too, so much that I didn't know that I was behaving in inappropriate ways. Like, I had no idea. I just kept thinking, what does that person want? How do they want to see, like, how do they do relationships? What are their rules? Where are their landmines? If I could just learn how to be in a relationship with that person based on what they want. So neglecting the fact that I wasn't coming from my true authentic self. I was afraid to express my true authentic self. So I kept thinking if there was just some way that I could improve myself, that would be more general for the general public, like some way to be
PG rated.
Some way to be that I wouldn't be so weird and awkward all the time. But it was hard for me to get into relationships because of that. Because if I didn't know where another person was coming from, I was deadly scared.
Yeah, like a deer in the headlights. Oh,
yeah. So in my illusionary world, I thought, well, I'm good. I'm being good. I'm doing good. I'm doing what they want. And eventually what ends up happening is that, there's this little martyr that comes up and says, well, I'd always do this for you and you don't, like, it has these little, like, resentments and like all these little things. And then in relationship with that person, it starts to build and it starts to build and it starts to build, never once seeing I might have a part in this somewhere, So that is something really to keep an eye out for, because I think a lot of us are doing that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, don't be nice, be real. We're trained in a culture to be nice. We're trained to be nice.
Yes.
Well, yeah.
And everyone speaks nice.
Yes, I know people like that in my life, and the surface, they're so nice and friendly, but then yet the things that they have problems with and the ways they go about communicating are totally messed up, and it's just because it's being skewed through a shadow aspect. So what they want to express is getting diverted through this. So it comes out, the energy's funky, the wording is funky, and it's like it's so present and in your face, the shadow aspect, yet they'll deny it's there, you see. So it's still so people pick up on it, and you're like, what is wrong with them? Why can't they just talk to me normal, But they can't until they deal with their shadow aspect, Then we can communicate clearly and express our needs in a way that is more balanced,
And you just said something really profound. Express our needs. And that's the thing, is that what I'm finding is that most people are good. Most people want to be loving. They want to give love. They want to receive love. They want to connect with another person in that authentic way, but they don't trust that avenue at all. You know, that was my case. I didn't trust it at all. And the thing is that in keeping that in mind, it makes this process a lot easier. Yeah. First, that we chose this life and the challenges that we face, and second, that we all, at the base of it, we all want to grow in love. And so, just keeping that.
Yeah, if you can keep that in mind, absolutely.
Yeah, it makes it easier to remember for yourself, because why would you do something nasty in another person's direction, even if you weren't aware of it at the moment? When you look back on a situation and you say, okay, what I did created this huge tsunami of dissonance in relationship. And it could hit many people within a group, and you're like, wait, I didn't mean to create all this. And then when you realize, I wanted to be loved. What's so wrong with that?
I wanted to be heard.
Yeah, what's so wrong with that? Yeah. Ultimately what we want is not bad. It's that we think that there are ways of going about getting that, and it turns into manipulation in 2.5 seconds.
Exactly. So. Yeah, it gets very twisted. I would highly recommend our show with Gabriella Korch in terms of this topic. I thought that was just, her information is just beautiful, and it really is clear in terms of relationships. So.
Yeah, for sure.
In terms of Kelly Lachey, outsourcing our love. And, the things you're talking about are the things that are rampant. And the media supports it. We've become a civilization that is looking at the most superficial qualities, the body, the shape of the body, this kind of thing, with the marketplace of, if you're going to get love, you've got to be sexy. And it becomes more and more terrorizing and more threatening. And the idea of actually showing up as yourself, and that being attractive, this is what the powers that be don't want us to know, that actually the most attractive thing is a human being that's being authentic. And then you attract another authentic person into your field. You may be off-putting to those who are still so frightened to be themselves. That's true. But and then on a cosmic level, when we're looking at this, the spiritual warrior of the dark side and what's going on globally, we know that becoming embodied is a spiritual warriorship. It's essential for stopping the psychic vampirization of our soul force and our energy, because all of this program, you're not good enough, you have to be false, don't be with your real energy. And I'm going to dive way into this in the next show, how we are really being vampirized in the part, because that's in the unconscious. It's disembodied. It's food for the dark side. This is the dirty secret they don't want. There's a reason all of this has been engineered. And this is where coming together in small communities and sharing truth together to go, oh, wow, I'm not so horrible. It's a huge cultural a mind control program, and each one of us that breaks free and reaches out as we, whether you get your needs met or don't, the greatest need we have is in being ourselves. That's the reality of it.
That's beautiful. And even if you are horrible and you've done horrible things, you can leave those behind, and you can then choose a different way of being. It doesn't have to define you permanently. And that's really important, too, to know you can grow and evolve.
Yeah, if you actually have done, and I have, it's in my book, Stealing the Moon, goes all the way back lifetimes to having been a part of setting up this whole control grid. I was one of those that did that. I didn't do it totally systematically and rationally, but I did. And that aspect, that huge field of wrongdoing, informs me. Like Castaneda says, you wear death on your shoulder, you wear your shadow on your shoulder. It informs you of your course correction at every moment, because you befriend it. You don't go by its choices anymore. But it can only control you if it's hiding in your shadows. If you don't know what's motivating you, if you don't understand why you do what you do, then you are a puppet for dark forces that are lurking in your own unconscious. But when you bring it to the light of day, it's an aspect of yourself. And your own higher aspect will direct you to the course of healing. It is about relating with your authenticity, whether it's related to nature or animals or your creativity. It's not all about having to have this or having to have that. We've been programmed to think we need all these things. And I guess now this is the second time I've said it, all we need is ourselves.
Yeah, and just seeing that areas of disharmony and dysfunction in our lives, those are the clear indicators that you have a shadow aspect that's present, like you said, that's hiding, that you haven't befriended yet, and how it's manifesting in your life. And then as soon as you integrate those, you take away that feeding source as well as the opening for manipulation. So basically deal with your shadow aspect, deal with manipulation. It doesn't go the other way around. So if you get rid of a manipulating force, if you haven't dealt with the shadow aspect, another one's going to come along. It's just you got to deal with it from this at the source, and that is within you.
Yeah, for me it was like when I did recognize a specific thing, it was really looking at the motivation. Like, what was it that was trying to, like the love, the feeling of lack of love or lack of worth. And also, there's this violence that goes on against ourselves when we don't act appropriately, or what is judged as not appropriate. The words I'm using are specifically for that moment in identifying with, the game. And in that moment, I'm not being acting appropriately for some person or what have you. And when I am looking at that at play, the question I'm asking myself is, what is my motivation in this particular situation? Is it to be right? Is it to be loved? Is it to be heard? Or, what have you? And once I can identify the need that is unmet, then I can look in through the past, which it's only... Histrionics is a useful tool to look back through time and see where it is creating, a pattern or whatnot. And so when you look into that pattern, then you can identify the piece that you're not getting and how it came about that you started to behave in these ways that are actually quite harmful to others. And once that is seen, then you can actually feed yourself. You're not putting abuse on yourself because you're not acting according to the laws of the land anymore. You're actually saying, what is it what is the message in this pain? What is it trying to say? And you can turn around and give that to yourself. And in doing so, uncover, like the very first thing that I uncovered was compassion, which is huge. I can't tell you how that changed my life, like 180 degrees, like a totally new life once I saw that. It's huge.
It's because you had compassion first for yourself.
Yeah, for sure. Because I could understand how I got to that place, Of course that would be the way, I mean, here I am not understanding what love means and then trying to beat myself up. I mean, we're talking like most of my life beating myself up because I was hitting other people's landmines and not understanding what was going on. Right. So I turned the abuse inward. And let me tell you, you want to talk about a quick way to dis-ease, that would be it.
That's the super ego, and that is in everyone to greater or lesser degrees. And it is actually the internalization of the outer fascist police force. We become our own police force. We see these... we aren't allowed to actually be authentic, and then our authentic energy takes on negative aspects, and then we condemn and punish ourselves, just like we punish criminals. We punish all the beings that we've created horrific situations that have forced them into behaviors, and we are as much to blame as anyone, and then we condemn them and lock them in prisons, and this is what we do with ourselves. And then it's job over. We don't even need dark forces anymore.
Yeah.
Or alien invasions, or we don't even, they can go on to the next one. Job done. She'll take care of it now for us.
Right.
Oh, yeah. I mean, addictions are such a great indicator that you're just totally punishing yourself. You know, it's just, I don't know. It's like when you suppress or reject an aspect, one of these shadow aspects, it's the same as rejecting yourself, which is the total opposite of love. I mean, love is not afraid. It doesn't judge. It accepts and forgives. So if you're not doing that for yourself, you can't possibly consider doing that for someone else. I mean, you can try, but it's not going to be complete until you've dealt with that within yourself.
Yeah, it's a big thing, self-love. It feels to me like another continent that I've never, I step onto gingerly. I don't know the terrain at all because we've had no upbringing for it. We've had no support for it. It's been the biggest secret. How do you not feel worthless? What is self-love? It's not self-indulgence. It doesn't mean you empower these negative aspects. Sometimes it's tough love for yourself, but that's different than condemnation. It's like, no, I'm not going to do that. Or maybe it's breaking an addiction. That hurts like heck. Sometimes it is imposing rigid self-discipline to pull ourselves back. But so it can be many things. Love is a vast territory. It's part of what I would call the feminine principle. And in that there's been a holocaust against it for thousands of years, it's not like it's been that available for us to know about. So this is where our exploration can open up. What is it? And there are a million therapists and how-to and people telling us how to do it. And sometimes that all just makes it worse. Sometimes it's great to hear someone else, but then that's outsourcing your information. At the end of the day, we need to find this in ourselves. I don't mean reading and going to things and exploring isn't good, but at a certain point, it really needs to be you with you, me with me. And it's not so, it feels very foreign because we just haven't had it much, this world of self-love.
Yeah, and it's interesting that we even have this perspective that says that if we're not loved by someone, we're not lovable. And the thing is that I'm with I'm not alone. I'm with me at all times. And it just hit me one day. I was like, why would I not be my own best friend? It just like really hit me. And I looked in the mirror, looked in my eyes, and I was like, I love you. Why would I not love you? I'm with you all the time. And that, like, for me, that flipped that switch. But it's going to be different for each person because it depends on, like, what, it's kind of like wedging into that space of being with yourself and feeling comfortable in your own skin. And how that happens, life will help you. I mean, life definitely takes its course and says, why don't you try this, And there are, like Sienna said, there are tons of people out there with different ideas. So definitely explore them. And with that intention, for sure, it will happen, that you come to find yourself as your own best friend. And once that cup is full, it's running over, and life has gobs of energy to pour out to just, it's like with ease and grace, you're giving love to and compassion to everyone because you have it to give and your cup is running over and you wouldn't see any other way to go about expressing yourself. So that's been my experience with it. And believe me,
and with that said, excuse me, Elizabeth. I just wanted to be the devil's advocate, since that's my archetype. And say that Alan Watts wrote a book called The Taboo Against Knowing Who You Are. And he talks about the taboo against being alone. There is a huge negative charge about, oh, you're alone? Oh, she's so alone. Oh, I mean, I noticed that traveling to other places, you get in a taxi, oh, where's your husband? Where's your family? You're alone? Like it's a disease, like it's a horrible plight. And poor me, I have to endure it. And there is a huge taboo against being alone because it is the portal, the stargate into knowing yourself. I mean, I don't mean we all have to be alone all the time, but there are times when it is the only way to reconnect. And it is not easy. I've seen people on plant medicine. They go, it feels like you're dying to go through that. It feels like you're in limbo. It feels like you're coming off of smack. If you're really somebody that has been outsourcing your needs for everything, and then you go, oh my God, I've got to go within. But it's a bardo.
That was
and
me.
You get through it quickly, but it's still really
It's so painful.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I went through to get to this part of myself, was that 2-month period of, separating from my husband and being alone. And that aloneness I thought I was going to die, because I realized what happened is I was outsourcing my self-worth. And at first didn't think I was going to make it. Like literally, I thought I was going to die, like you said. It's just horrible. And I had to find it within myself, literally, in order to survive, to come back up from the bottom and find life within me,
This is part of a kind of dark night, right?
Mm-hmm.
You choose it because you want to finally be with yourself, no matter what. You reach this point in your evolution, and they'll throw everything in it's the bardos. They throw the demons, and they come in interdimensionally, and I mean, they don't want this to happen, and they cut off the phone call, whatever. They want to make sure that you don't get through, because when you get through, you go, oh my God, this is what I was scared of. This is the coolest thing I've ever experienced.
And suddenly you don't feel alone anymore. Like Elizabeth was saying, you find yourself. You find your own self-worth and your self-love, and you realize you are all you really need. And if you choose to have others in your life, it becomes more of this balanced energetic exchange. It's totally life-changing. But there's an opposite to the aloneness. I know there's people who choose to be alone because, like Elizabeth was saying, it's in relationship that your shadow aspects really come up to the surface and are in your face. And so there's people who don't want to deal with their shadow aspects, and it's easier for them to not deal with people, so they like to be alone. And they got this thing of like, oh, I'm a loner. I like my privacy. I like to be alone. And it's like, that's actually a way of what's the word I'm looking for?
Hiding.
And
never
thank
having
you.
to deal with it.
Right.
And you never get to that place. And there's a lot of, we are coming from that separation, that control, and it isn't in our aloneness that we do get vampirized in dream states and different energy states. When we are actually living from our essence and in connection, this is the greatest protection we have, is in coming out and creating that balance. But if we are a total loner, a lot of our energy is we're escaping, we're suppressing, and a lot of our energy is being vampirized. They love to have a feeding frenzy off of all these lonely people who are hiding and who are terrified. And that's why unity is so important right now, to come out. But again, it's a balance, right? You can, unity. Well, wait a minute. You have to bring your authentic essence into unity, not this outsourcing and be a unity addict,
Yeah.
Unity addict.
Yeah, there's just a big difference between being lonely, being a loner, and being okay being alone.
Yep. And that's the thing. That's why we can't have any rules. There's no workbook like, this is the way you do this. This is the way. You can't, because as soon as you say one thing, the other thing could be true. This is where we need to have our own discernment, our own self-awareness, our perception of truth. We need to know the difference between positive and negative energy states. We need to understand what is our ego, what is a shadow aspect we play, what is our true need, all of these things. And it does take a certain amount of self-exploration to do this. But once you do, then you can't be messed with. And we are all in a state of being messed with all the time until we do this work. We're just puppets in a game that so many forces are vying for us. And the way they do is because we lack the discernment of knowing what aspect is at play.
Yeah, and it's just so imperative. Again, it's that they play on the lack of self-love and self-worth. I'm going to say this over and over again because it's so important. Like if you do anything in your life, focus on that. Develop, cultivate that, because it allows one to move through life without getting hooked, without being able to be manipulated. It allows the energy of life to move freely through you and with you, and for you to be in the present moment and respond to life as it unfolds through the guidance of your own spirit. You can clearly hear your own spirit. It's not even hearing, it's just it comes from a deep knowing, and it's just so important.
Beautifully said. We'll be right back. stay with us. This is Shadowland Voyagers.
Radio Network.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. This is hour 2 of episode 29. This is Sienna Leah. I'm here with Christina Grant and Elizabeth Hansen. And to go to the archives, you can access them at Truth Frequency at Shadowland Voyagers. We have 28 incredible shows for you that dive deeply into this information. Also, we have a YouTube channel, Shadowland Voyagers on YouTube, and we have the Shadowland Forum, where you are welcome to join. So there are a lot of different avenues for you to participate, and more coming. We'll get into that in a minute. All right, so we are talking about how to identify and own and claim and transmute and the shadow aspects of ourselves. So we are going on to how can we identify our weaknesses that leave us open to attack from the dark side.
I think we covered that one, but if you have something to say, go ahead.
Well, I could just read this little bit, and
sure.
Maybe it's kind of a recap, perhaps, but we can jump off from here. Particularly that one must know and befriend one's ego. So we haven't totally talked about what the ego is and where the ego has been. So we have and we haven't. I think it might be worth mentioning a bit more about the ego in terms of that. One must be willing to take a naked inventory of one's character flaws, one's fears, escapisms, addictions, one's pain body, what is one habitually avoiding, how one self-medicates, what one still wants to communicate to mommy and daddy, the unmet needs that have gone on, all of these aspects that can cloud, that can be indicators of, and particularly the ego. The ego, as Beth Green would say, we have an interview with Beth on those archives. She's wonderful. She'd say, don't be lunch. Don't be lunch for the dark side. And and when we are operating from the lower aspect, not the twice-born ego or the evolved ego, but when we're operating from our ego, we are lunch for the dark side. Would you agree? Hello?
I don't have anything to say at the moment.
Okay, that's fine. Well, I have a lot to say about the ego. Shut up and let me talk. Would you please here?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I could talk for a couple. The ego. Well, because it's been engineered that this poor little ego is supposed to be navigating this being whose self is buried and made taboo, and who all of the shadow aspects are rattling like skeletons in the closet, begging for expression and integration. And the ego is supposed to just get the job done, get out there and achieve, put your best foot forward, do it all for the home team. And the ego is fear-based, isn't it? It's always, at the end, it's really looking at how can I survive. Mm-hmm. The ego is there for our survival. It's, so we don't get run over in the street, so that we make sure to eat, so that we do these things. The ego is a great friend, but our egos have been battling each other. This is the way our civilization has been structured, because we're in a fear-based culture. And so it's an ego against ego world. And it's so hypocritical. We're told that we shouldn't be selfish and we shouldn't be serving ourselves, when we are actually told that we have to. We compete. The good one wins. You have to outshine the other siblings to get attention. You have to outshine your other students to get the scholarship. So it's this crazy-making thing where our egos are both condemned and yet programmed, really, that's what the whole game is about. To have the best ego on the block.
Right, I know about that one. The way I like have understood it, it's more of a visual, but okay. So I'm brought into this plane of existence and this third dimensional quality where everything is material and physical, and there are all these games to play. It's limitless what we can do here. So much is available to us to actually play with in the material world, and I think that is where the ego comes in as a personality, because we're outside of unity, right? We're in that duality, and I think that in order to play in the duality game, in order to grow and learn as we want to, we need the higher self is stripped, the essence is stripped, and the personality is the overlay to this physical manifestation. That's how I see it, and it's actually a tool that comes with the body. And when it's used appropriately, you can teach it to drive, so that while you're driving, you can contemplate your day and you know how to drive. It's just and you pay attention to the road and whatnot. But for the most part, it's the ego doing that. Or, you've made this dinner a million times and it knows how to make that dinner without pulling out the ingredients every time. It's that kind of thing that it can be used as a tool. It's when we start allowing it to run our entire lives, and we think that, and we identify with it as us, as the personality. I am the personality. I am the individuation and whatnot. I've actually had arguments with higher self. It's that it becomes clear the differentiation at that point, because it's like higher self will say this, and then the third dimensional ego will say, "Oh yeah, of course," and the higher self turned and said, "No, you didn't know that. I just told you." Oh, it was like a complete argument about what I knew, and the ego tends to know what's right and wrong, knows the difference between black and white. It's that duality understanding. So it is a lower understanding, so that we can delve into the world of material, and that's how I see it.
Yeah, that's a great way of explaining it. It definitely needs to learn its proper place and use. It is a very useful, like you said, it was a tool, but it has to be tamed in a sense. You're brought into balance with the soul and the spirit. The spirit particularly, that's that deeper part you're referring to as higher self. That's that part that's eternal and all-knowing. And the ego, we're so identified with the ego because it seems that's the part that speaks the loudest, right? And so if we could just get that part in alignment with our spirit, and so they can work together. I have to see it as like a horse and a rider, ego being the horse and the spirit being the rider, right? To directing really where you should be going and what you should be doing, and the horse doing the work. And then you get into this flow where you're working together with your ego and your spirit in alignment with one another. And there is and integrated them, so they're not really even separate anymore, but cohesive.
Well, we don't have healthy egos. Our egos are have all little Napoleon complexes. We feel completely worthless, right? Diminished, disempowered, and the ego is trying to make us, so we're either usually really puffed up, and over-exaggerated for a minute, or we're pushed down and we feel worthless. And the ego has gotten a very bad rap. Remember, most spiritual practice that deals with the ego says we have to overcome the ego. Ego bad, ego bad. The thing is, the ego never has had a chance to grow up. The ego's never had any love. The ego needs to be educated like a child and helped and supported, and think about it. When you were a little kid and you thought you were the center of the universe and everything was about you, that was a stage that could have created a healthy ego if you had been thoroughly supported. But no, the cultural program comes in and, don't do that, don't be that, and condemn and put down and make you like, what do I have to do to make these people get off my case? And there's not the inherent sense, and the indigos have it actually. The inherent sense is I rock. My knowing is right on. My access to truth is here. You are going to listen to me. I mean, there is a person with a healthy ego intimidates the heck out of most of us. It's like, what? Where does she get off talking like that? And you can have a healthy ego that would really intimidate a lot of people, but we don't know what a healthy ego looks like. None of us have them. This trauma-based mind control breaks the ego so that the ego is a slave to the matrix, to the artificial construct. It's one of the.
I would say looking at a child and how their ego operates is actually a really healthy way of a proper use of an ego and spirit. Because think of a child, right? They're always in the moment, and they're doing whatever, and in that moment they feel like doing, okay? Whether that's taking a stick and drawing in the dirt, or suddenly they get hungry, and then their ego goes, I'm hungry, and so then the child gets up and goes, and and it's like, and then they fall down, and they cry, and they hurt, and then they express it, and then they're back to playing again, and then they're happy, and they're smiling. It's like they're always in the present moment. Their ego's really healthy. They're operating from their spirit, and like you said, then we get broken from that, and that's where the trouble begins.
Yeah, Ion says that a healthy ego is constantly pursuing the shortest path to one's joy, moment by moment. Wow, can you imagine that?
Yeah. Whoa.
I mean, does the Matrix let you do that? Oh,
Hell
no, you've got to survive.
You got to get a job.
That is a healthy ego, the shortest path to your joy. Yeah.
And like Elizabeth, you always say about that, just coming back, and they say, the meek shall inherit the earth. It's returning to that childlike state where we are really healthy and balanced. We are in the moment. We're expressing our needs. We're enjoying life. We have that wonderment of life. I was just thinking about the other day. I got to see a band I really loved, Junip, up in Santa Cruz on Friday night. Anyways, there was this child that got brought to the show, and it reminded me of when I brought my daughter Skylar. I was 19 when I had her, so I used to bring her along to shows and stuff. Anyways, she was so cute, and she was just spinning and dancing and just so in the moment. And I was thinking, wow, that's what it's about. But we are trained out of doing that. It's like, I'm watching her. She's so free. She was free and happy. And I'm like, that is what it's about. You got it going on.
Yeah. And it's catchy too, So when you see someone else being free like that with their expression, it opens up the field for everyone to be free with their expression,
I actually experienced that at the show myself because that's how I am. So, and it was a really strange crowd. I don't know if I've never been to a show in Santa Cruz before, so I don't know if it's typical, just the vibe there, or if it was just a venue.
It's typical.
Okay, well, I freaking love this band, so I'm just grooving away, and I can see all the other people, and no one's really grooving. They're just kind of, maybe moving their head a little bit, and I'm just like, what? Yeah. And I'm just, going off, doing my thing, and all the people around me, we created this little bubble of, like, joy, dancing, totally into it, and like you said, it's contagious. I don't know we were all, like, synergized together, and just enjoying the music, and it was pretty awesome.
I think that's typical. Like any time that I've gone out and listened to music, bands and stuff like that, it is usually just people bobbing their heads. It doesn't matter where it is. It's so rare to see people just get out and move with the flow of the music. It's so rare. I actually had experiences like that while I was clearing the shadow pieces. All of a sudden, like, music could flow through me again, and I grooved like I hadn't grooved in years. So
it's so helpful to move that energy, like dancing or for like running, jogging is helpful for me too. But just moving the body, I think, is really helpful when you're trying to integrate a shadow aspect too, and just removing stuck energy. Because
it gets like it wedges itself into our physical bodies. and creating, like, it's in our energetic field, but it then goes into the physical manifestation. So, you lose, it's like, someone who did yoga for like 10 years and then doesn't do yoga for 5 years and can't make that same stretch because they're out of practice of allowing that flow, allowing the chi to enter into that particular area that's stretched out. So it's similar to that. It's like all these energies, all these compressions, they take form in our physical body as well. And so we stop being able to let energies flow through us, in and out. So like if a negative energy comes your way and you have that constriction, it's going to attach to the constriction, and in the energetic body and in the physical manifestation. So Dan says, moving your body while you're doing this processing work is really good. I found it to be very useful.
Yeah, and it's a great way of getting in touch, developing that self-love and self-worth piece too, because you're getting to know this. You're working with your body. It's like you're hanging out with yourself.
Totally.
It's really important for that too, I think.
Absolutely, because the control grid is all about none of that can ever happen. You're supposed to be so fear-based, shut down, inhibited. My body's ugly. I don't want someone seeing me shaking all this thing all over the dance floor. No, not me. Or whatever it is. And and we're going to get into this in the future when I get Tom Moncock going to be doing a 3-part series. We're going to be talking about the compromise of our etheric template, because this change in consciousness are waves of etheric energy coming back on in ancient, and this is what has been vampirized. It is vampirized by the shadow aspects that are hitting us interdimensionally and compromise on planet with all this control mechanism. He was stating that thousands of years ago, when we see all these magical cultures, the Mayans, the Egyptians, doing all of this alchemy, they had huge etheric bodies like the ETs do now, even the dark ones, the light ones. They can, time travel. They can move they can do telepathy. They can create things with their thoughts. And why? Because they have a huge etheric body. And ours has been vampirized over all of these years of demonizing us being ourselves and being embodied, and hanging witches, and anyone who had magical powers was called a pagan, and the religions came in to demonize all the maneuvers on those levels. We actually had these powers, and they've been taken from us. So it's all about rebooting our etheric. And now with all of the galactic changes, there's a gigantic amount of energy pouring in from the core of the galactic center and through the plane, the galactic plane, all of it. So we have these waves of etheric energy coming in, and yet we are so shut down, so fear-based, so unintegrated, and hiding, and unwilling to open up the channels that allow energy to flow through us, which we're calling authentic energy, being ourselves. So those of us that continue to stay shut down and hiding from ourselves are not going to be able to benefit from this change of age, where others will be becoming psychic and telepathic, and it's geared for this huge ascension, evolution. I wanted to talk about this in the time we had left, is what is in the way, because there's a huge reason why we don't have an etheric template, and why we're terrified to enter our own, embody our own essence, because this is where we're going to get the upgrade. This is where we're going to make the quantum leap. And it's going to be a choice. The people that can join in that are going to have that incredible being able to live in that state of joy and connected to the non-physical, and find that calmness and that love of life. And it is love. It's being in the love field. And this is what we've been systematically mind-controlled to feel ashamed about that, to feel it's bad and wrong, to be embarrassed about showing love. Like, we can show violence, right? But can we, like, if you think about it, we can show violence on the street, but we're ashamed to kiss each other on the street. We're ashamed to show we're lovey-dovey in a restaurant. We hide love like it's something dirty.
Mm-hmm. And we withhold it.
Oh, yeah. Compassion is an aspect of love. I just have to kind of talk about this. I don't remember what movie it was, but it was one of those children's movies that's not a cartoon. And the parents were kind of not loving each other. And, they went to bed, and the husband says, I'm just having a really rough time right now, and I'm feeling really sad. And the wife turns in bed and says, "That's okay, honey. You'll get over it." And that was considered compassion in that movie. And I was like, wow, it's like completely normalized to not show compassion. It's shown everywhere. It's completely normalized to, and in my case, I felt that one of the rules I made about relationships was that if somebody didn't show compassion towards me, they sure weren't going to get it from me. And I mean, that was
number one rule.
That was the rule, and
that's the rule.
Yeah. So, I mean, it doesn't work. That's all I'm saying. Normalized to.
Yeah, it is. It's like that's how you're supposed to be, and that's what you see happening. You see it patterned all over the place. So yeah, we got to get out of that for sure.
And then you go, oh, I don't deserve that kind of treatment from anybody. And then you start, clipping off the people in your life one by one, and next thing you know, oh my gosh, you're alone. So.
Yeah, the unconditional love. It's hard to give unconditional love when you never have experienced it before. It is challenging, but the St. Francis is in giving that we receive. It is in loving that we love. Is dying that we're born to eternal life. I mean, I'm not a Bible girl, but that one's good. It's true. It's in, and particularly for the feminine principle. We are, and this is the best kept secret, we are the source code. We are the creatrix. We are the fractal of the galactic core. And that means it generates all out of us. We're the space holders for the new paradigm. We are the healing force that allows things to coerce and come together. And it is the flowing out of our love that is creating relatedness, that's creating everything in the human arena, and yet we are afraid to be this because we have been programmed to think that we have to be men in men's world. We have to hold it down. We have to hold this huge feeling, and I don't mean emotion, and I don't mean neurosis. I don't mean out of control. I mean a feeling feel. Women hold a feeling feel that is just like from the galactic center. It's pure creation. We hold that and things thrive. We're the fertilizer for everything to grow, and yet we're ashamed of what we are. That was a good trick to get us to be ashamed of that.
Absolutely. Yeah, but we're getting it back. We're understanding our true purpose and maybe not even purpose, but just who we truly are. And I would say that in terms of unconditional love, I don't see it as something you give. It's something that just emanates from you. It's just available. It's a field. It's not necessarily given or taken.
Yeah, it's when you're in your authentic presence, it exudes from you because it is you, it isn't you. We're part of the mother, the divine mother, the creator of everything. It is us. And yeah, it's not like you try to be it. It's that you allow the authenticity, and it's this beautiful river of life that just keeps flowing through us. And men have it too, and men can have it too. But I believe it's the women that are going to help men open to it.
It's hard to say because I think that ultimately the whole love piece, it's healed when you find those places where you feel unloved. Regardless if you're a man or woman, the feminine principle holds that field, but I think that all of us understand what it feels like to want love and not be able to find it anywhere. Turn about faith and love yourself. Put love where it wasn't put before, in those times of trauma and pain and all of those things. Put love in those places when you didn't get love that you needed. That's the bottom line. It's like not being fed when you're hungry. That's going to create some issues down the road. And so it's very similar. It's the same thing, really, because we're talking about basic needs, and we oftentimes don't even understand what our basic needs are. And I would say that one of them is the basic need for love. And the only way, I talked about this before, it's like two black holes trying to get something from each other. It's never going to happen. It's going to create chaos and dissonance. And until one black hole turns about face, that love field is not available. So who's going to do that first? And the way to do it, you can't, like Christina said, give it to somebody. It is already in your field, and therefore it just is. So, but when you find those places inside of yourself that have been wounded, that didn't receive love, it is your job as an adult to put love there now, to be the adult to that child that didn't get love way back when, you know. And I feel that that's like a huge piece to this whole love thing, is loving yourself once again.
Yeah, that's beautifully said, Elizabeth. We have about 23 seconds till the break. And then we'll be back with our final half hour, where we will talk a bit about the future, I believe. Stay with us. This is Shadowland Voyagers. Welcome back, everyone. This is Sienna Leah, and I'm here with Shadowland Voyagers. And this is the hour 2, the last half hour. And we are going to be talking about what we've learned and gained and where we are headed. Thank you for that, Christina. Wasn't supposed to say that, was I? Okay. Elizabeth, you're on.
Oh, yes. This has been quite a journey, and working with both of you has just been a blessing in my life. From showing up here every week in one way or another, I have been able to really hit on some of the major key components to that ego personality, the restrictions and limitations that were coming up for me prior to the show. And just doing that with both of you has been truly a gift. And every week with different guests, so much was learned. There was always research to be done, and looking into different guests' work. And, you know, it was like the perfect way to really get an intimate understanding of the methods that were being brought up, and it just different perspectives that were presented assisted me to try different things to understand what was going on in my life. I started engaging with people again, and realizing that I didn't understand how to be social anymore, and if I even ever did, I started to question that, and also began to question if I knew the truths of my history. One of the biggest components was that I had made a lot of assumptions along the way in relationships with people, because I didn't understand what was happening, and I didn't understand that there was a necessity to begin to communicate with people in an authentic way. And that was one of the largest pieces that just doing the show assisted me with, and also speaking in a public way about what I actually feel. That was just such a huge, there was just such a huge limitation there. I would have a feeling, and the words that would come out didn't match what I wanted to say at all. And so that has been just one of the largest gifts doing this radio show, and also working with both of you along the way in relationship with each other has been there's just a huge opportunity for growth in my world. And, the gratitude is just so deep, so deep. And I really appreciate the platform that was offered here so much. And what's happening for me right now is that I'm being internally guided to start exploring my interests. And one of the things that I've found is that, through the years, probably starting in 2009, I really started searching and seeking and searching and seeking. And that time for me has come to an end. And now it's about looking for being in a free flow expression and being in alignment with the next calling. And part of that is that there's now a time for me, which I'm kind of excited about, to explore my essence. So and I get to do that on Shadowland Voyagers as well. It's just taking a different flavor. Since 2009, I've been spending a lot of time on the computer, and I'm finding this necessity to step away from the media and really feel into my own essence and come into more of a flow. A lot of that has to do with creative expression. I have a huge interest in fine arts, and I would like to begin doing paintings again. And I don't know, just go with the flow of my life, I feel. And stepping away from the computer, the blaring computer.
I can definitely relate to that.
Yeah.
Gosh, wow, what a journey this has been on. There, I never would have, I couldn't have foreseen what I would have gotten from this experience. And just having gone through it, it's just amazing. I mean, for me, I tend to be a very independent person and like to do everything for myself, and tended to be a bit of a perfectionist. Perhaps I still am. But this process has also taught me how to work well with, in a team environment, and develop a better way of communicating and having more patience with others. And I'm just so grateful for that, because typically I've experienced that, say, in my normal work environment, but there isn't the truth, trust, and transparency aspect there that we have in the field that we have built with each other. So it's really allowed a lot of growth for me in particular. And so that's been really great. And just realizing that everybody has their innate strengths and weaknesses. And while we can strengthen our weaknesses, we still tend to excel in certain areas that come just naturally and struggle in areas that don't. And I've actually learned to really value and appreciate those natural abilities and be more, quote unquote, forgiving of the weaknesses in myself and others, and just see them as just the way it is. It's like not a big deal, which before I used to just I don't know, just more, it would just bother me more or something. It was a shadow aspect I needed to deal with. But, I didn't always necessarily do it with grace, but I certainly have learned a lot, and I just so appreciate the two of you for allowing the growth in that area. And I've also just learned that a person only has so much time and energy, and how much more I value now my time and energy and my skills. And I don't know, I definitely like being of assistance and doing all of this. I mean, there's been so much work. It's not just the radio show, the 2 hours you hear us on the radio. There's hours of prep work. There's hours of post work. It's a lot. And I don't know, I'm definitely more of a behind the scenes girl, and I look forward to continuing to help out and stuff. But just, looking forward to more time to be off of the computer and do more of life. I don't know. It's just, I have a lot more to say, but I feel like I've talked a lot just now.
Well, that was good, and I appreciate both of you so incredibly for what you have showed up and created. There have been hours of off-the-scene prep that you've both done in handling technical issues in YouTube and editing and pre-recording and letters and follow-up and all of that stuff. But for myself, having you present, being able to actually create a field with 2 other women that were dedicated to facing their own shadow aspects and staying on board and working through, even though we hit some bumpy spots many times, you're willing to come through it and show up and say what was pissing you off and what wasn't working. And I had to look at, wow, I need to get that online. And and hearing there were I could not have seen myself if parts of you reacted to parts of me that needed to shift my energy. And I found in this last 6 months that, and I think this is happening for a lot of people, that a lot of the stuff I thought I'd worked through already, like I hadn't, because I hadn't had the support. I hadn't had the unconditional love to go through it and to express it, and that the people would stick with me. And so I've processed a lot of a lack of self-love issues through this, and now life is, you're leaving, partly, you're not totally leaving, because we're going to talk about the reconfiguration, but it's making me come out of the closet, because I've been, well, I'm here, but I'm hiding behind this person, and now I'm going to hide. It's not a full-on, no, I need to step out thoroughly as myself. So there's another layer, and even though people say I'm so wonderfully articulate, there's a part of me that's autistic. I mean, I carry a female soul. There's all kinds of part of me that are terrified and without form, because we haven't been able to have form. So it's intimidating to know that in the future I'm going to be moving solo, and yet it's the edge. The edge is exciting, it's dynamic, it's terrifying, but it's also where the growth is. So I'm embracing that. And I just am so grateful that we came together, that we stuck together for who you are, for who you've become. It's a wonderful thing to experience other people emerging in the field that you're holding. There's nothing more satisfying than that. So, yeah, there's been huge growth for me as well. And I thank you both very, very much. And I thank myself very, very much.
Yeah, I definitely feel that way too. As when I was thinking about this, I was thinking, God, I feel so grateful to universe and my spirit and Sienna, Elizabeth, and Chris Gio, and all the listeners. I just was feeling so much gratitude for this experience, because I've just learned and grown so much from it. Growth and learning that I would not have gotten otherwise. I mean, this is a very unique experience. So I'm just so grateful. Well, thank you.
Oh, I'm really glad you mentioned the listeners, because we have people who've written us letters, who show up on the forum and post, who I've had Facebook conversations with, that are taking this information and they're doing it. They are doing it. They're doing their own investigation. They're exploring their own shadow aspects. They're understanding the feminine crystal and how it's worked historically. They're pulling information and they're posting it, and they're growing and they're shifting. And wow, I am so honored to be a part of this, to be a catalyst for this, because it feels like a wave and a movement. I know it's not just happening here, but is happening here. And each one of you that is embodying this is such a gift to the whole world. So thank you so much, and I hope that you stay with us as we reconfigure this thing here.
Yeah,
yes.
I'm really proud of the work we've done. Absolutely, and I'm really happy that you're continuing, Sienna. And I don't know, for me personally, I'm at this place where I just want to live and let live. You know, just interact more with my family and life, and get back into some things like photography and cooking and baking and singing, things that I've had to put aside to do this. And again, I'm so grateful I've done it, but I also don't feel this like need to be on a mission. You know, it's like, I don't know. There was a part where I felt like I was invited to, and I felt good about speaking up and sharing my journey, my experience, my perspectives. But now I just kind of want to fade back into the scenery of life, and I might start a blog and post, you know, things I'm doing, more, you know, creative projects and things like that, and perhaps inspire that way. But in terms of being on the radio show, it was nothing I ever necessarily wanted to do, and it just doesn't feel like my calling. But again, just really excited that for what we've done and just like, wow, I did that. I'm like, something I'll be really proud of. But I was going to say what's really funny too is when I realized that I wouldn't be able to be committed to the show past like mid-June because of our move to New Zealand, there was a bit of a relief, but I also noticed that how quickly the ego gets identified with something and extracts importance from it. Sort of like when I decided now it doesn't feel right to continue. It was like, wait, what do you mean? Whoa. This is really important. We got work to do. I mean, come on, you're saving humanity. And I was like, whoa, no. I don't know. It just was really interesting. How quickly you become attached to something. But I so enjoyed speaking with all of our guests and just the feedback from the audience. And for me, one of the big things I've gained in this is just a deeper appreciation and value for each unique journey and expression, including my own. And just how no two journeys are alike. I mean, every single one is different and every single one is beautiful in its own way. And that has been such a gift for me. I don't know, I love that. And the other thing, too, is that I've realized that no matter what a person's, if a guest has a different journey and perspective and technique and way of expressing it, it all really did boil down to the same thing, which is look, feel, accept, and release. However you say it, however your technique went. I mean, from Steve Richards to, Teal Scott to whoever. It's like it was all kind of boiled down when you look at it. You strip away all of the decorations or however you want to say it. It all boiled down to that. Look, feel, accept, and release. So that was pretty cool. Just realize that,
Yeah, it's so important to value your own journey, and whatever shape that takes, honor it. Honor and value whatever comes your way to look at, because it's precious. I mean, from another place, this experience of being human is so precious. I mean, I don't know that it's possible to grow to the exponential degrees that we're able to grow here if we want to. You hold that desire and the willingness to see, to feel, it'll change your life. It'll change your life.
Yeah, and just this experience of having to listen to myself on the radio.
Oh my God.
I mean, at first I was like, oh my God, that's how I sound, and that's how I express myself. And then I'm like at the point now, like, well, yeah, that's how I sound. That's how I express myself, And so that was really cool to process, to go through as well. And now, Sienna, you're going solo. Should we talk about the transformation of the show? You're starting a new weekly radio show. Do you want to talk about that?
Okay, yeah. Yeah, the show is going on. It's morphing into a phase 2. And I don't know what phase 3, we just know this is phase 2. It's moving to Friday night at 8 o'clock Pacific time. And it's going to be 1 hour. And I'm changing the concept. I'm going to be going a lot into alien interference. I'm going to go into a lot of timeline manipulation. I'm going to be going into a lot of different areas, and the core will not change. The core will be, how do we maneuver as who we are with the reality, the full-on reality of what's being thrown at us. And this could be, chemtrails or GMOs. I'm going to be totally guided. What we do, I have Tom Montauk in July doing a 3-part series, and he is so incredibly brilliant with breaking down the realities of alien interference with all of our lives, what that really is, who they are, what they're doing, so that we can broaden the understanding. Sometimes voices in our heads and actions and maneuvers and time manipulations are happening, and we don't have the perception open because it's unfathomable that all this stuff could be happening. And you don't have to have had alien abductions. We're all a part of this. We are all being maneuvered in gigantic ways. So I'm being called to that. Eve Lorgan's going to be on the first show on June 14th. on the Friday night, and she is continuing to be a key person in that exploration. And we'll be moving it. And there's another piece of this, and I haven't got it totally online, but if you go to the forum, if you go to shadowlandforum.com, it will be posted there. If you go to my website, stealingthemoon.com, it will be posted there. We're going to have something like a hangout space, a conference space where after a show, you can come with the guest and we can open up the conversation. We may do some process work. We're going to dive down into this so it's not just us talking at you, but it gives a next phase of interaction. I'm really excited about that part, and I hope you all participate to some extent. You can also show up there and not say a word and just listen. I'm going to have it be really non-threatening. You don't have to. I'm going to try to find something where you don't have to register. You can just like waft in. If you build up your courage, you can unmute and show up and talk and ask a question, or maybe you really want to dive in with us and become a key participant. And we have a group. I'm thinking these groups are going to initially be smaller. It's a place of community building around this concept. The show is going to be, the name is going to be changed to Illuminating the Shadowland. That's the 1-hour show on Friday. Shadowland Voyagers will continue as this interactive place of conversation and meeting that will go on up to a week after each show. So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, me too. I think it sounds awesome. It'll be a place to dive into the topics that you're bringing up, and just to be a neat way to connect with people, it's like I feel like this need to do groups and things like that. And I'm hoping to be a part of that too. I certainly can't commit to anything too much at the moment, but I'm looking forward to the transformation of Shadowland Voyagers into this new format. And your new show, I think, is going to be awesome. I think it's going to be a kind of a hard-hitting, to the point, kind of like, whoa, just a very interesting concepts and what's going on out there with the empowerment piece. Because there's a lot of radio shows that just talk about the conspiracy stuff and the off-world influences and the on-world influences, and yet they leave you hanging without anything to do about it. You kind of feel more disempowered, where you're going to come at it with the empowerment piece. So I think it's going to be really awesome.
Yeah.
And I'm encouraging Elizabeth and Christina to jump in whenever they want without that being a demand. Christina has offered to help me out with it, still the YouTube channel, and she's still working with me. So, and I really thank you for that, Christina.
I'm not going to leave you hanging.
Yeah, because you know what a techno idiot I am, and if you did, this may crash and burn. So I just want you all to know that Christina, even with a move to New Zealand, with her whole family, her career, everything, she's still working behind the scenes. And Elizabeth, I put out a super, the door is wide open for you to participate with the Shadowland Voyagers interactive hangout space, because I think you'd be great for that. I really do.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, I would, once I get into feeling my groove, we'll see how I feel. You never know. I just have to let go of the commitment for the weekly radio show. So,
yeah. And for all of those of you who listen and post or just listen, and you have an idea of a guest, you have an idea of a topic, you would like to participate. I had somebody just email me that's listened to the show, and he's had incredible experiences and multidimensional experiences fighting draconians and all kinds of things. And he said, I'm just nobody, and you probably wouldn't want me on the show. Well, we're going to have him on the show. And he is absolutely awesome. He's 24 years old. He's a genuine human being that discovered these things on his own and has found a way of making peace with himself and these beings, and I think you're going to love him. And if you're one of those people that has a story, that has something, you want to either show up just to share it privately in a conference in the Shadowland Voyagers hangout place, or if you have something that you want to say, I don't need to have a superstar. I'm not into this for the fame and the glory. I'm really into this for the transformative consciousness aspect. And I know it's about us supporting each other and giving you voices as we've been transformed by giving ourselves voices. So can think about that. And if you get brave enough, write me, post something on the forum. The email is on the website, stealingthemoon.com. Again, shadowlandforum.com. And if you're somehow tuning into this and you haven't listened to the other shows, there's some amazing shows that you might want to just go back. It's all on YouTube. So I'm really holding out my arms to all of you to make your journey. I know you are. And I think that the thing we've been saying through the show largely is we helped each other by just coming out of the closet and showing up here for each other and for ourselves in ways that are just unfathomable. And we want to do that with you too. I'm envisioning the world tour, TV stations, radio stations, all kinds of ways, places, communities forming, places, because I know it's us gathering together. I know it's us creating support for each other where the real healing is going, because it's hard, like Ein says, that you can't create something new in the same, junk that we're all in. So there have to be spaces that are really transparent and really truthful and in a different frequency. And that's, to me, numero uno. We don't know how long we're going to have the internet. This could go out tomorrow. So if there's anything I can leave you with is find each other. Find another person, two people. Make your own little format. We're going to have I'm going to have a workbook. I'm going to have formats for you to gather and meet together, but you can make your own too, where you start to experience the incredible growth of being supported for having a dark side and a light side and everything that's really real in a place where you could just come clean and actually get to grow. Even if you have a straight job and you have commitments, even if you get online just with a couple friends, and if you would like to work on a format like that, this is on my to-do list, to create like simple meeting formats so it would be easy for everyone to start doing this, because this is a grassroots, this isn't like, and the secret is we're not going to charge you $300 for these seminars. No, it will all be donation. You don't have to pay a penny. This is our birthright to heal ourselves. And I see this as a worldwide grassroots movement for owning your own Shadowland and passing this gift on to others.
Opinions expressed on this broadcast do not necessarily
we love you.
Those of the
That's why we've been showing up all these. We love ourselves. We love all of you very much. We can do this.
Frequency is a non-biased and
25 seconds, y'all. Any final words?
All aspects of the truth and allowing you, the listener.
It's been amazing. Thank you so much, Sienna.
I love you, Elizabeth.
I love you too. Christina, I love you too.
Love you too.
Love the listeners.
Absolutely.
With such conviction. how we scream for help. Yeah. Now my dark, dark nights when you held me tight and we read for light to read.